The contents of this interview, or from Awake and Empowered Expo LLC from Ethann Fox and Flower of Life Center for Human Evolution, is for informational purposes only and does not necessarily reflect the viewpoints held by these organizations or individuals. Always consult with your doctor or health professional before making any changes to your diet, lifestyle, or prescription drug use. Please understand that you assume all responsibility and risk for the use or misuse of this information.
Welcome to Awake and Empowered Radio. This is Ethann Fox. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Jake Ducey. At the age of 21, Jake wrote his first book, which quickly rose to Amazon.com's bestseller list. This interview not only focuses on what it means to live a happy and fulfilling life, but you'll find the urge to laugh and smile to be irresistible. At 19, Jake Ducey left behind a drug-filled life and a college basketball scholarship to wander the world in search of meaning. What he found was that by following our hearts, we find and can fulfill our dreams, that everything he was seeking was within him the whole time, that our destiny is in reach if we look within ourselves first. Jake now takes this knowledge and his concurrent message of accepting responsibility for our decisions, our lives, to audiences around the country. At once inspirational and practical, spiritual and grounded, serious and entertaining, at 21, Jake shares wisdom often lacking in those thrice his age, challenging his audiences to live well, productively, and profoundly in the present. Jake, how are you?
Ethan, I'm great. I just got an hour and a half massage. How are you?
I'm doing great. So you must be feeling pretty revved up for this interview then.
Yeah, no, I'm feeling here.
All right, good.
Are you in Detroit?
Yeah, I am. Well, not
right
in
on.
Detroit. I'm in a suburb of Detroit, but yeah.
Okay, cool.
Where are you from? Where are you right now?
Encinitas, it's North County, San Diego.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I was born and raised here.
Wow. Pretty warm
Yeah.
weather there still?
What's that?
Pretty warm there still?
Oh man, right now it's been the warmest it's been all year. This last week it's been about 90 degrees every day. There's no
Wow.
clouds in the sky.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I only just found out about you maybe a week and a half ago. So I didn't even know about you. So I haven't had a chance to read your book yet, but one of our members of our staff, Matt, which I think you know from somewhere, he sent along a video of yours. So I thought, all right, your message was just perfect to really kind of sum up everything that we're about in our expo, really inspiring people to think outside the box and taking a chance and doing things that are meaningful in their life and so on. So we're very excited to have you. And but you have a very interesting story, which you might have touched on all this in your book, but for our listeners who have not read your book yet, what was your name of your book, first of all, just so
It's called
everybody knows?
Into the Wind.
Okay.
Speaking of taking risks, Into the Wind. That's what it's called.
Good. So what prompted you to, I understand you just kind of dropped everything and started traveling around to discover who you were and the meaning of your life and so on. So what was the catalyst for taking this trip?
Well, I realized that I was living a life that wasn't mine, that we come into this world and then by the time we're 10 years old, this is our limited spectrum of what we can choose from. Perhaps we end up and we're 70 years old and we've only seen a narrow amount of the available choices, the available possibilities. And I went into my freshman year of college on a basketball scholarship, studying of course, business, which is kind of what happens as a male, I think, especially if you don't choose on your own. Here's your choice. I'll choose it for you. And while I was in there, I was becoming aware of some of the socio and economic and environmental problems that we have to correct, anything from degradation of the rainforest to such a degree that a football field size of the rainforest is destroyed every second to 60% of the world's in poverty, 40 million people in America. And I was like, well, am I doing anything about it while I'm sitting here waiting 4 years in order to get a piece of paper which will qualify me in order to do something in the world? And every day I started contemplating this, and then I was spending the rest of my time playing sports. And I think when we're little, something happens. It's like if you and I went to an elementary school and we held this big event and we asked everyone, we said, who here wants to make a difference? Everyone would go like that. I spent a lot of time talking at school. Some of them jump out of their seat. They're like, hey, I do. And then I think what happens is we slowly start to shift away from that, I think on an unconscious level, and we just kind of are going through the motions. For me, it was to get a degree, play sports. Sports allowed me to go to college. And I realized while I sat there that most of us are gambling on the biggest risk of all. And that's the bet that one day later in life, after we make the money or after we please our parents or our friends or we're normal, then we can buy the freedom to do what we want, or then we'll have the time to choose what we want. But first, we have to follow this prescribed lifestyle. But this prescribed lifestyle, as evidenced by we're at the highest rate of clinical depression ever, the highest rate of teen suicide, it's an overbearing place to go, that prescribed lifestyle, if we aren't choosing life for ourselves. And I realized I personally wasn't doing so. And so I realized that it was up to me to take total responsibility for my life, what I wanted out of life, my dreams, and take up the means to fulfilling that. And that was the time when somebody, I'm sure the similar thing happened to you, the first self-improvement book you got, somebody said, here, read this. And for me, it was like, I'm not going to read this. And then I finally opened it up, and it was nothing I didn't already know, that, if we have a clear vision and we take action on it, then anything's possible. But I realized all I was doing was learning it, that there's a difference between learning it and living it. And learning it is knowing all the reasons, why not, or we're waiting down the year and we're going to prepare for possible failures. So we're just preparing all the time. And living it's taking this risk. And so for me, I just had to take a risk.
So what was it like to step out on a limb and do something that was a little out of the ordinary for someone your age? I mean, most guys your age are doing the football scholarship or they're in college. I mean, did people look at you and criticize you or make fun of you? Or
Ethan, everyone did. Every single person, including my mom, except for my dad and my brother. I only had two people that didn't think I was crazy. And it was liberating to do. I think freedom is found in uncertainty. If we're certain about everything that's going to happen, if you wake up at 7 o'clock and your whole day's planned out every single day to such a T that the only thing that's not accounted for is how much urine's going to come out of you when you go to the bathroom for an extra 2 minutes on your break, then there's not a space for freedom in that. And I realized that when I was able to take that step, it was like, I don't know what's going to happen. Woo! And it makes you laugh. You're like, whoa, that actually feels good. I don't know what's going to happen. But you feel that you're supposed to do it, but you just don't know what. And so it was really liberating. At the same time, it was, my life got a whole lot better when I stopped taking it so seriously. So I realized that, if you're walking away from what everyone else is doing, and you look at Jim Rohn, the famous speaker, said, walk away from the 95%. Do not do what they do. Do not read their books. And he's saying that, simply because most people aren't happy with their life. That's all he's saying. And so it was actually a liberating experience to say, I see what all those people are doing. Let's just see what happens if I go this way. And, for anyone listening, risks are definitely a place where a lot of people are going to say, what are you doing? What are you doing? But I say everything's a risk. It's a risk to stay where we are, but it's a risk to step into the unknown. It's a risk to get a 2-car garage, 2.5 kids. You could be in debt. You could be in debt for your kids' college loans. And then that morning when you're making eggs, your eggs could be too hot one morning and they'll burn the palate of your mouth. And we thought that was just safe, secure, and smart. But there's also a whole nother way to live, and that's taking a chance. And yeah, that's looked at as risky and, not always safe. But I always ask myself, what's the best that could happen? And the best that could happen was that I would actually be fulfilled with my life, which I was not.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like the kind of questions that a person asks themselves, and I've read this in a lot of books too, are really key to how you perceive your life.
I think they're of the utmost importance. I spent most of my life saying, why am I not happy? well, because you don't deserve it, because you're stupid, because you're past, because you failed here, because you failed there. The mind is lit. That's just how it's conditioned to work. Yeah, so absolutely. You know, I think when we shift, we're usually asking ourselves, what's the worst that could happen when we want to take a risk? Well, you know, this could fail, my whole life could go this way, and I don't know, everyone's not going to like me anymore, and then nobody likes me. And we go off on that tangent about what's the worst that could happen. And so I just shifted it when I realized that I wanted to take a chance to what's the best that could happen. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what made me be able to go over the fear that you kind of alluded a little bit to in terms of what other people think of you. It's like, well, what's the best that could happen if I do this anyways?
Yeah, you in one of your YouTube videos, you talked about it and you kind of touched on it, how, and I don't remember the exact wording you said, but something like uncertainty is the key to fulfillment or something like that. Is it?
I think uncertainty is the prerequisite to fulfillment.
Uh-huh.
I think that we have to be able, because you have to be able, you're not ever, I will never be testing myself and uncovering who I am if I'm never stretching myself. Stretching ourselves is stretching our beliefs about what's possible, which happens when we take a risk.
So how does a person know what risk they should take? I mean, obviously, if you take a risk, you're going to be in a state of uncertainty. If it's a real risk, if it's a genuine risk for you, you're going to feel uncertainty. But how do you know that it's the right risk to take, that you're on the right path?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, again, I'd like to say, personally, my philosophy is that everything is a risk. And so I always just see what's the highest, or I make my decision off whether, I can only speak for myself, but when I make my decision, it's what's the best that could happen for me and what's the best that could happen for others. And if it's something that's pretty high, then I'll take the chance, because I feel that we're rewarded when we're making decisions that are larger than just ourselves and our own, you know, as Martin Luther King said, no one has ever lived until they stepped out of their narrow confines of their individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of humanity. And I think a lot of the times taking a risk is for a broader concern of humanity, because when it pays off, we can say to someone, look, you don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to stay where you are if you're not happy. I just did it and everything opened up. And then it's a ripple effect. So I always ask myself, if it's what's the best that could happen for me and something larger for myself, I take it. But everyone knows the answers for what they're supposed to do. I think it's like, you know, have you ever been around somebody and they've been like, I'm having this dilemma, and like then they start talking. They want to share two sides. They have two possible decisions to make. And this just happened recently. One of my friends wanted to share with me where he was at. He shares both of his sides, and he starts talking. And on side A, he starts talking about how he feels he's supposed to do it. And side B, how he's not feeling called to do it. And at the end, he says, what should I do? I said, well, you kind of just told me what you should do. I think you already know what the answer is. You just have to do it. And so I think a lot of the times we actually know the answer. You know, it's like we're smart enough to tell whether something feels good or doesn't feel good, as long as we don't try to rationalize the whole thing. Because life isn't even rational. It's like we don't even know how we got here in the first place. You know, it's like there's no one else that's alive like this. You know, it's like, so I think when we can feel it and not get so rational about it, then we can know. I personally, that's how I make my decision. Then I can know if it's something that's in my best interest. But life's not here to punish us either. We're not going to make a choice and it's going to affect us for the rest of our life unless we let it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I mean, everything we're doing, even with the expo, is such a big project, and it was in many ways a big leap of faith for us to do it, but yet all the pieces just keep falling into place. So, yeah. You know what I mean? And I'm sure you experienced that too, where it's a huge leap of faith. We had no idea how we were going to pull it off. And yet, as we go, stuff just happens and people show up and things just fall into place. And like you showed up, and, you know, it just has been like that from the very beginning. And so we've just had this feeling like we're doing the right thing, even though there's no rational or logical reason to believe that. It just happens to work out.
And I think something that happens is most of us never take the steps. So we never experience something like your team is experiencing when you see all these pieces come together, because we're so stuck on what's the worst that could happen that we never take the step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So tell me about some of the profound experiences you had along the way in your journey that kind of shaped your life and the person that you are today.
Yeah, so I mean, I was 19 when I did this. It was my third semester of college. I left. I took, I kind of just scribbled on the finals the last semester because I knew I wasn't coming back. But I left then, and the books that I was reading were more about fulfillment and happiness, saying that, happiness doesn't come from what we attain. And I understood it on a conceptual level because I was reading it, but I hadn't experienced it. And the first thing that happened is I flew to Guatemala, Lake Atilan, Guatemala. And once you get there, it's 12 little Mayan villages around a lake. And it's a very ancient Mayan area, really poor areas. Most people make under $1 a day. I saw these kids that sat there with nothing in their stomach except for maybe if they got 25 cents, they went and got ice cream for the day. And they had cuts that weren't clean. They had, holes in their teeth from all the sugar. They wore the same clothes every single day. Shoes were too small. Shoes were ripped. They were dirty. Their faces were dirty, but they were happy. And it's not to say that things are bad, because they're not. I don't believe anything's good or bad, but what I realize is that we don't control all the circumstances of our life, but we do control the way we define them. And these kids didn't have much, but they defined it still as this opportunity to experience fun, laughter. What could they make the best of the situation? And I finally experienced and saw with my own eyes that the primary cause of unhappiness isn't the situation, but our thoughts about the situation. The primary cause of the situation, the primary cause of unhappiness isn't the situation, but our thoughts about it. And that was so profound to see 5-year-old kids that are sitting with 25 cents in their pocket, if they even have a quarter, and they're showing me that really you can turn your life around, and you can turn it around in a second. You can turn your day around, and that was the first thing that I saw as soon as I got there. I actually stumbled across a kind of a local, what we would call a shaman. They don't call themselves that. They are passing down the Quechua Mayan heritage. 20 minutes after I met this guy, I found myself in a concrete shack in the middle of the coffee fields in Guatemala, on the ground, shaking and crying because this guy, no substances, doesn't even drink alcohol, fat, only eats a couple times a week, told me everything about my life with such accuracy that I was shaking on the ground crying. A few years before I left on this trip, I was somebody who used a lot of prescription pills, a lot of alcohol, and I flipped my car 4 times, 400 feet down a ravine when I was drunk one night, and, could have died. And this guy told me about it, and he knew so much about me that I couldn't take it. When we met first, he told me he was going to read my mind, and I said, okay, what are you talking about? And he did. I think more what he did is he connected into my energy field and was able to reflect it back to me. And so there he told me that I was going to be sharing this message with my generation. He said, we're more powerful than we've been led to believe, and that if we don't take action on our world, we're not going to have one to give to the future generations. Told me that I was going to be helping impoverished children. And since that time, I was so touched. As I told you, the first lesson I learned was from 5-year-old kids on the ground. And, since I finished up the rest of my travels, went through Australia, slept on the beach, met a man who told me, find something that you enjoy doing. Make that your obsession, make your obsession your profession, and you'll never work a day in your life. I told it to myself, I think 50 times in a row after he said it, and I've never forgot it since then. And that's how I'm living my life. And I traveled around through Indonesia and Thailand, and when I came back, I built an orphanage out there for the kids in Guatemala. And the result of that is two things. One is a Gringo de Guatemalteca, a white Guatemalan, and his name is Jake Gomez. He's named after me, and that's my grandkid, and that's the shaman's son. And I just saw pictures that somebody actually that read my book was just down there this week and sent me the pictures. This is the first pictures I saw of him. And he's about 1. And the second result of the orphanage was that they have role models. And that's what I saw from most of the people along my journey, is that they were role models in their own way. And whether a lot of times that was in poverty in Indonesia and Thailand. I actually lost all my money in Indonesia, and a family took me in, and I tried to give them money back a few weeks later. They paid for me. They lived in concrete shacks, and I tried to give them money back, and no, I'm not taking your money. The purpose of life is giving without expecting return. It's what somebody said to me. The purpose of life is giving without expecting return. This is a guy who had no money, and he wouldn't take my money. And that was incredible to see that giving doesn't necessarily mean a physical object. Giving is presence. Giving is I think, just letting somebody know we appreciate them. We don't have to give something to someone. And that's what I saw. I grew up in this world where it was like, that's how we let people know often we appreciate them. We buy them something. And so it was so cool to see that money doesn't buy a connection. And we hear that, but to see it, I was hearing all these things, all these conceptual things. Happiness doesn't come from things. Friendship or love doesn't come from what you can give them physically, whether it's in the form of just sex or whether it's in the form of a diamond ring or all in between. But then I got to experience these things. It all went back to from the learning it to the living it. I got to see it being lived. And ultimately, I was traveling with these Indonesians, and I fell off a cliff. And I was climbing in the rain in the middle of nowhere, and these guys saved my life. And I was on the ground crying because it was the most incredible thing anyone's done for me. I fell about 12 feet. One of them jumped off after me. And I know I'm saying it in a more casual manner right now, but when I talk, I go into more detail about it. And they wanted to take me to their favorite waterfall on their home island because they had never met a tourist that had trusted them. And it was pouring rain, and we were climbing up boulders, and I slipped. And I saw my whole life flash before my eyes, actually. And this voice said in my head, if I die right now, I'll be okay with that. Because I will have done what I wanted to do with my life, which I couldn't say that for almost my entire life. And as soon as I said that, this voice said back to me, you're going to be okay. Then boom, and I hit the ground, and ultimately they ended up saving me. I didn't break anything, and landed down on my side. And that night I realized in my bed that I'd traveled around the whole world looking for something, feeling something, shake somebody's hand, eat their food, different locations in space and time, whirling around on this giant rock in the middle of space. And I realized everything I was looking for was inside of me. It's just a choice if we want to be fulfilled, if we want to make a difference. That I didn't have to go to another country or another planet or anywhere. All I had to do was just make the choice about living life on my own terms. That I found out that to me, happiness, being awake and empowered, is making the choices that are compatible with the definition of happiness I hold, which is living life on my own terms. You're awake and empowered when you're making choices that are analogous and synergistic to your own terms. And my term was I needed to write a book. I needed to share this. So I ended with 14-day silent meditation in Thailand and came back.
Mm-hmm. Now, in America, we have everything we need here. We have money, we have stuff, we have big cars. We have,
give me some stuff.
We have houses, Starbucks coffee, everything we could possibly imagine. Do you find that Americans are as happy as some of these people you've met in other countries?
By and large, they're a lot less happier because I think all that stuff is a distraction, so we never get to feel how we feel. So we're not really making choices that are analogous to what we really want. And that's not to say I don't love America, because I do. And I live in one of, I think, so far I've been around a lot. I've been around a lot of places, and this is San Diego, where I live, is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. I love it. Do I think that that doesn't mean that we have room for improvement? Absolutely not. I think a lot of our stuff are distractions. And I think we all, in the other countries, when you don't have anything, if you don't grow up with anything, then you see no reason not to fully live your life every day. You're like, okay, I'm going to be dead soon. I don't have anything, so I'm going to go live my life. I'm going to go help someone. I'm going to go make someone smile. I'm going to go laugh today. Today, I'm just going to laugh. But I think here we have so much stuff going on that we're like, okay, how can I keep all this stuff? I need to go to this job I don't want so I can keep paying for all this stuff. And I think the statistic speaks for itself, that our rate of depression speaks for itself.
Mm-hmm. So you think material things are sort of inhibits us from really fully experiencing life? Do you suggest that people should just get rid of all their material things?
No, because I think that they're important. I think, though, if you never connect to who you are, then you can never appreciate what you have fully anyways. Mm-hmm. When I came back and I lived in a house again, I was like, oh my gosh, there's walls. Like, look at, there's walls here. And I think if we can connect to ourselves first, then then your car is going to look a whole lot prettier when you first know that there's kids that are walking around barefoot in most of the world on unpaved roads. It will make you love your car a lot more, in my opinion. It's making me have clothes. I could just, I'm wearing a shirt that doesn't have any holes in it. And it's a nice shirt. I like it. And I'm not saying that we should all take our shirts off and not wear it, not have a blender. And I think that they're important, but I think they're appreciated to a whole nother level, because I think when you grow up with everything, you become numb to it all to a certain degree, in terms of you don't realize that most of the world doesn't have it. The opportunity that we have in America. Jim Rohn says, you don't see people waiting on the docks in America to go to Bangladesh. Everyone's trying to come here. There's an opportunity here. And I think we overlook the opportunity because we have it right in front of us often.
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously, the average person isn't going to drop everything and go to Guatemala and speak to a shaman there. But so what kind of advice would you give the average person so they can discover this meaning and to find happiness in their everyday life?
Yeah, well, the whole point of my book is that I traveled around the world and thought that something was over there, and it was actually just here right now. Right. And so, it's not my recommendation to do that. I actually, I just met somebody the other day. She wanted to go travel, and I was like, I don't think you should. and I think it goes back to a few things. I'll do a couple things. One, the definition of happiness to me is living life on my own terms. And, you said, what should people do to be happy? They should know what their terms are. Getting more clear with our vision. If we look at all the greatest contributors to the world, MLK, Gandhi, Rosa Parks, Steve Jobs, whomever it is, Mother Teresa, they all had a clear vision. They all had a direction that they were moving in. And so defining our terms is giving us that direction, that vision, those goals. And I think those are important, because most heart attacks occur between the hours of 6 and 9 a.m. on Monday morning. I think that's because most people are doing a lot of things. They're not living on their own terms. It's hard to be happy if you're not living on your own terms. And second is something that one of the kids did, and I would love to walk you through it. And so I'd like you to just close your eyes and smile as big as you can for a second. It gets over-exaggerated. I'm not looking at you. Mine are closed too. And then notice when you're doing that, how your emotions shift. Can you feel any more sense of lightness? Can you feel you feel a little bit more goofy, a little bit more relaxed?
Right. I want to start laughing.
Exactly. I've had one woman, she came out of it and she's like, wait, stop, because I'm dizzy right now. And, my point is that I didn't do that for you.
Right.
I may have said, try this, but you did it. You smiled. You created that feeling. That was you. So my invitation is to consider to anyone who's looking for more out of their life to realize that you create your own life. You just showed that yourself by you put yourself in that state of feeling. So that means that you can create the type of feeling that you want out of life. And if that feeling is meaning, is more purpose, then all you have to do is continue to uncover that space within yourself and draw it back out to the world. And, I think that purpose can be as simple as making the intention to make somebody smile in the day. Like, that's purpose. You go make somebody smile at the cashier at a grocery store. If you make somebody feel good, if I make somebody feel good about myself just like that, I feel I had a successful day. Look back, man, I made somebody smile. And I think let it build from there, because really, what's purpose? We want to feel purposeful because we want to brighten the world, right? And you can brighten the world just by passing somebody and smiling at them. That's purpose. That's what our world needs. I talk about environmental disruption, political corruption, economic disasters, but I don't think that's actually our threat. I think where we're at is that we're in a crisis of joy. Not enough people doing what they love, so they don't have the energy to take on something larger than themselves. And I think when we're all doing what we love, when we're looking to brighten somebody's day, defining our terms, what are our terms that we want? I want to travel, I want to speak to people and inspire them, and I want to write, and I want to spend time by myself because I like to write by myself. Those are my terms. And I think if we went around with a video camera and we asked people, what are your terms for life? What's your dream? Most people would say two things: I don't know, or it doesn't matter. So I think consider taking those out of the vocabulary and replacing them with what you would really want. And it doesn't mean that that's what has to happen for the rest of your life. That's trying new things and uncovering what works. I can't say that I'll write books until I'm 60, but it's my terms right now, and I enjoy it. And so I think defining our terms, because that's taking responsibility.
And
why
do you think it is that people don't know? When you ask them that question, why don't they know, and why does it not matter to some of them?
Because we're conditioned into a world that tells us that we don't matter, and and we're not important, and the picture on the magazine is what's important, and that the most important things are houses and cars and paychecks and being famous and everything outside of ourselves, so we never uncover what it is our self is and what it wants. And so after we spend 10 or 15 years like that, it's like if I sat like this, if I was talking to you like this and I always kept my head like that, eventually it's going to stick like that. And similarly, when we're never exercising our own free will, and then it's, here's what you're going to study and here's what you're going to do. Soon I think we stop wondering what it is we actually want, because we just think we're supposed to do what we're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. So I think that we have to reclaim our choice, our ability to choose, and that takes responsibility. And we don't live in that responsible of a world. Just take a look at the nuclear weapons that are missing all over the place. Well, where'd that nuclear weapon go? I don't know where it went. And I think taking back personal responsibility is what's going to bring us joy. And, I also don't think we can uncover all the reasons why. I just think, it's happened. And from there, we can make the appropriate choices to get out of it.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say about all of the insane leaders in the world who are doing all these crazy things that are causing challenges for people. Would you say, I mean, are they happy people, do you think? I mean, what causes a person to think like that, to have that kind of mindset?
Albert Einstein says um, the highest destiny for an individual is to serve rather than rule. I think politicians have become celebrities and they're not public servants anymore. They're on the news. We see their faces all the time. They become celebrities. And I don't know. I don't spend that much time thinking about how they're feeling. uh, I spend more of my time wondering what we can do about how we personally can inflict some change in the world. I think that I think historically, if we look at a lot of the larger shifts in consciousness and morale and law, anything, that's generally happened from we the people. You know, sure, somebody signed a thing that said slavery's over, but that happened because millions of African Americans and white people band together. They said, we don't want this anymore. And so I try not to think about, I hope they're happy. You know, I don't want anyone to not be happy, but I can't imagine. I mean, I know I'm not happy when I try and control somebody, when I try to control things at all. It's, you know, we can't control everything. It's impossible. And that's a fleeting illusion that we can get happiness from control, whether controlling every circumstance of our life or trying to control individuals. You know, I don't know. All I know is that we, the people, historically have always made the changes, and there's 8 billion of us, and right now we have the internet. You know, you and I are talking through something that we can't even see, and that's power, because we can send a message around to the whole world. Mm-hmm. And that's this message, being awake and empowered.
Yeah, you and I mean, we have similar missions. We're going about it a little different way, and I'd really, you know, our expo is really about empowering and bringing more happiness and fulfillment into people's lives. And I've got my own work that I do in consciousness and so on, and so that's really the underlying purpose of everything is very similar to what you're trying to do. What do we have to do to change the world to make it better and more positive? I mean, how do we, you know, step by step, do you think, go about doing that from your vantage point?
The first things I can say is that I don't know all the steps and I don't know all the answers. I do subscribe to the words of MLK again, is that same quote is well, two things. Benjamin Franklin has a quote. He says, most people live till they're 75 and die at 25. This creates perfectly into this MLK quote. He says, most people haven't lived until they've left the narrow confines of their individualistic concerns for the broader ones of humanity. Maybe if we look at those two questions as a whole, what they're saying is that most people are dying inside of themselves because all they're doing is worrying about what they can get and where they can be instead of where they can serve. So perhaps if we can shift the paradigm from always being go-getters to go-givers, then the world will change naturally.
Very good. I like that. You know, a lot of people that I'm around, and I know you speak at this point mostly to a younger generation, right?
Actually, no. A really broad array. You know, I've spoken to career day at middle schools, to ran workshops where no one's younger than 50 years old.
Wow. Okay.
So it really varies. I've in one day I've ran a workshop for 8-year-olds followed by a goal setting workshop for parents.
Well, a lot of older generation, I find they're very they're not very optimistic about the younger generation. They don't think that they're on the right track. They think they're too busy playing video games and other things. What is your observation of the younger generation, people your age or even younger? Do you think that there's a lot more happening there than people, older generation people are noticing?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of people that are alive, and I think if we're alive, then we certainly have the opportunity to do good. And perhaps a lot of people are sitting around playing video games all day because they see their parents that are unhappy and they say, that looks like it sucks. I don't want to do that. And there's no other options available, so they sit around and they play video games. I never thought about that until right now, but it could be a possible reason. I think that when we're little, I think, again, I've spoken at a lot of elementary schools and high schools, and like I said, I say, who here wants to make a difference?
Yeah.
I do! Call on me! I'm like, it's not even a question. You don't have to say anything. Just raise your hand. They go crazy. And I think that perhaps what we need to do is give people when they're young more of an opportunity to make a difference, rather than saying, okay, here, memorize the quadratic formula, because I've never used it. I've never pulled up at a stop sign and used the quadratic formula to make a right-hand turn. And so perhaps what we need to do is that we need to give them more of an opportunity to find what they love to do and make a difference through that. Somebody likes to paint, then by all means, their schooling should be revolved around painting, not about what Thomas Edison said in the 1700s, after he walked out of a building or something, What's the point in that? If they like to do something else, then they should be developed in that, I think, so that they can make a difference through that and inspire people through that. And so perhaps we need more creative outlets, because certainly sitting and playing video games, there's not much of a space for creative choice that's getting us to that. It's kind of like, okay, I'll just do it because it's what's here. It's what everyone else is doing. So I think maybe before they get into that frame, we need more opportunity to express ourselves, instead of saying, here's your choices, choose between A, B, C, and D. You can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be a businessman. By all means, don't be an artist, don't be a writer. You can't make money at those things. And it's important to make money. And by the time they're 10 years old, they think that the most important thing is if they're going to be able to make money. And we forget that if we do what we love to do, that's the true source of wealth, and money will ultimately come to us. So I don't know, maybe we need to look at that.
That makes a lot of sense. Actually, I've been, one of my long-term goals is to start a new education system, actually, because I think I completely agree with what you're saying. I think probably the problem is that our kids are not being challenged to do things that they enjoy and that they love. And so we're teaching them young to not love the things that they're doing in their life. And then we grow up to be miserable adults, not loving what we're doing in our jobs. And then we teach our kids the same thing, right? So
yeah, let me ask you something. Would you, if I asked you to, and we were over in the same, if I was in Detroit right now, and I had a little wood chair with a wood flank that I nailed on top of it like a desk, and then I stuck gum all over the bottom of it and on the seats, and I said, here, sit in this for 8 hours, memorize this stuff. Would you want to do that?
Doesn't sound very appealing to me. But then, like, school never really, I did fine when I was in school when I was younger, but it never made a lot of sense to me. I was always a very creative guy and had lots of crazy ideas and so on, but that structure never really allowed for that. It never allowed for the freedom of exploration.
I think that's so. Yeah, I agree. I think that's so even when people are doing well in school. Maybe they're doing well, but they're like, I don't even know why I'm doing this.
Right.
Which I think is what happens also in jobs. People are making money at it, but they're like, I don't know why I'm doing this. I guess I'm good at it or something. And they don't even know.
Yeah, I hear this all the time. I get calls and emails from people from all over the world who call me, and I hear the same story over and over again. I don't like my job, but I don't know what to do. This is what I want to do, but I don't know how to get there. I mean, a lot of people, they're very unhappy. And that's why, I mean, your one promo video that you did where you talk about quitting your job and doing something else, I think that's really, that actually is what made me want to have you at our event, because I thought a lot of people are having this internal conversation going on right now, but they don't have the motivation or the inspiration to do something about it. And I think it does start at a young age. I mean, we teach our kids at a young age to fit into the structure and to memorize all this pointless stuff so that we can get a letter on a piece of paper, so that we can someday go get a job somewhere and sit in a cubicle so we can get a piece of paper called money, right? So, but but none of it is really fulfilling to most people.
None of it means anything.
Yeah, exactly.
We're doing it for something, unless we're doing it for a reason. Money means a whole lot to me. Now that I'm making it, doing what I love to do, it's wow, I'm getting this, doing what I want to do, and it feels great, and I love looking at it. Yeah. It's not, I don't dig holes in the ground and try and get rid of it or anything, but I love it now that it's doing it. It has a meaning to me. It's like you hear people all the time that are like, I just got this paycheck for $15,000, and as soon as I deposited in, then I wasn't even happy about it anymore. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe we'd feel a more lasting fulfillment if we made it doing something that we really love to do.
Right. So how does it feel now, going from living a normal life as a 19-year-old to now you're becoming famous as an author? I mean, how are your friends reacting to it? What's your life like? How's that changed?
I enjoy it. It's been a challenge. I was somebody who never used phones or computers or anything, before my book came out, and now it's like I have to be next to my phone and like this and that, and it's a cool challenge. It's being more responsible is something that I'm learning a lot. Not just responsibility with life choices that I make, because Russell Brand has this quote: he says, if I'm not sticking to my principles, then I'm purposeless. And so I feel I stick to my principles a lot, but I'll forget details and things like that. Forget a meeting, won't write something down. So those have been nice transitions. It's made me, it's the same. Here's an analogy. It's like, you asked earlier, should people get rid of all their stuff and things like that? And I'm like, no, we shouldn't. But, maybe we need to look within ourselves so we appreciate it more. Similarly, I went from nobody calling me because everyone thought I was crazy to, having a pretty busy schedule. And that's made me appreciate quiet time a lot more too. And I love being with people. I love what I'm doing. And it's fulfilling to know that if you make a choice and you act on it, then everything opens up. I can't imagine more than 4 people thought that any of this would be happening for me. My mom didn't. And so it feels rewarding, and it feels I think what challenge makes life fun.
Yeah, I can completely relate to your experience, because my family, they think I'm a little nuts. They still think I'm a little nuts, but because I'm always taking these risks and doing things that, especially nowadays, everything I do is really something I'm passionate about. And I feel like, and I think something you said earlier is something that I talk about a lot, that I think is important to point out to people, is when you're living a purpose that's outside of yourself, it becomes more fulfilling. When it's not just to make money or to buy stuff, but it's something like making the world better or enhancing someone else's life, or in your case, you're trying to make, the world a little happier place. It makes your life that much more fulfilling, and it makes you, happiness just comes when you take the focus outside of your own personal experience. Have you found that to be true?
Oh, I think that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful and well said, in terms of, I think that our mind will want to define purpose to such a degree that my purpose is an author and that's how I make people happy. But if I just step outside of myself when I'm at the grocery store, I don't know, maybe I'll stick my finger in my nose and make the cashier laugh. There's a lot of ways you can step outside of yourself to make somebody laugh. And so I absolutely agree with that when we step outside of ourselves, we're multidimensional rather than one dimension of I'm a speaker or I'm a businessman, because you can contribute to someone's life in a different way too. And I think that's only possible when we step outside of ourselves, outside of our identity of who we think we are.
So what can somebody, or what have you noticed that people who have taken your workshops before, what kind of results are they getting out of it?
Man, all types of things. I've had this one. I've read a lot of my workshops have been for older people. One time I had a guy, didn't know what he wanted to do. I asked this question. This question is, what would have to happen 1 year from now in order for you to look back and say it was your most successful, your most fulfilling year yet? What would have to happen? And this guy wrote down like 50 things. And I was like, okay, we're just focusing on one of these things. And he's like, yeah, but I don't know which one it is. I don't like my job. I guess what I want to do is I want to make $10,000 a month. Said, so you want to make $10,000 a month at a job that you hate? He said, yeah. He said, it sounds like a psychological conflict, and you're never gonna be able to do that because you don't like what you're doing. And so I said, how can we flip this? You know, what makes you feel alive? Have you ever jumped out of an airplane? He said, no. And I said, well, you know that feeling when you get that adrenaline rush. You probably heard somebody talk about it. What gives you that adrenaline rush? And he sat there for about 5 minutes and didn't say anything. And then he finally said, I like to fix cars. And I like to take broken things and fix them. It like just revs me up. And I said, well, why don't you be a mechanic? And he wants to fix old vintage cars kind of. And he said, you know, I'm not good enough. I said, well, why don't you make $10,000 so you can get the free time to start building more cars, and then you'll have the money in order to start your own shop. Sure enough, he made $10,000, and now he's starting to fix cars up. So I've had anything from that to I had a 12-year-old kid, and he said, raise his hand. He said, I'd like to share. I said, yeah, please. He said, you know, we live in a world that wants us to be anybody but ourselves. Everyone wants us to do something, and usually it's not what we want to do. So I want to write a book because it's the thing that makes me feel like myself. So it's ranged from anything, but what I can guarantee is that you leave with more clarity than you came in for the direction of your life. And clarity is good, especially for us in the Western world that are so conditioned to living in our mind. Because if we don't have, we're so mind-based here that if we don't have clarity, then it's too obscure and we can't do anything. So leaving with more clarity and having a definite direction is a result of that. And I've had anything from an 84-year-old woman who's wanted to go to Fiji, and now she's going to Fiji, to as little as a 5-year-olds, and we wrote their dreams on pieces of paper, folded them up into airplanes, and threw them across the room. And the results have varied in accordance. I've had somebody say they just want to feel happier day to day. I've had somebody give a specific amount of money they want to make. And what I can assure is that these steps work because they're exactly what I did in my own life. And, you know, it's not exactly normal for a 22-year-old that didn't take any writing, got a 1400 on his SAT, to have a best-selling Amazon book that's endorsed by Jack Canfield. Or my next print on the cover is a quote from Jack Canfield, the creator of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And so some of these exercises are things that I've learned from Jack. He's one of my mentors and friends. And so these are exercises that I've learned from other individuals that work if you apply them. But what's easy to do is easy not to do. And so what you can leave with is clarity. And so that's the intention of them.
So can you share with us a little bit about what you've got planned for your future, or maybe even what your shaman friend told you were going to do one day?
This is it. This is it right now. This is exactly it. You know, I'm really thankful that I've had the opportunity to get to travel and help people. And Jack Canfield's business president's now creating all my work, you know, like mentoring me and setting everything up for me. So I think what I expect in the next couple of years is probably a lot larger seminars with her help. And which is, I'm really excited about that. It's a pretty rare opportunity. And so I think a lot more seminars too. I started a new book. It's called The Purpose Principles, How to Get More Meaning from Your life. I want Into the Wind to be a major motion picture. So if you know any Hollywood producers, is the one thing really, those are all details and relative things. What you can expect from me is that I'm going to continue to challenge myself to grow and in turn challenge others to grow. And I think that's really what we need right now more than anything. We've kind of been stagnant for a long time in the human evolution for quite a while. And so, detail-wise, those are some of my goals. I want to continue traveling, or I want to travel around the world and do this, take seminars to Australia and Germany and Europe and places like that. But I would really like Into the Wind to be a major motion picture. And I have 122 written goals, and so it would take a while to tell you them all.
That's great.
But it's just moving forward. I can promise that.
Yeah. Well, you obviously have a very high level of consciousness and awareness. How do you practice any spiritual practices or anything, or were you just always like this?
Oh, I was never like this. I was so high on Xanax growing up in high school that I fell asleep on the desk every day. And I think I was always smart, but I always thought school was stupid, so I never tried. I remember like one time we were learning, we were taking a physics test, and it was the study day the day before, and the teacher was telling us the third law of motion. It's an equal and opposite force for everything, and this is Newton's law. So he explained it to us by going onto the roof and throwing a brick off the roof. And when the brick hits the ground, the concrete is also hitting it with an equal and opposite force. And I remember sitting there, this is so stupid. When am I ever going to throw bricks off the roof? And so I never really applied myself. And I don't subscribe to a specific practice, because I think spirituality for me is going beyond the form and the mechanics. So I don't have a specific way I meditate. Sometimes I lie down, sometimes I sit, sometimes I listen to an audio one. I do a lot of yoga, a lot of sunshine. I'm in the sun at least an hour every day. And I don't really have a set practice, because I try to get away from too much following a set of belief, because I think if we're following a belief system, then we're not experiencing it anymore. We're experiencing it in accordance to how we've conceptualized life, rather than just how it's feeling in the given moment. So I just try and my greatest spiritual practice is to try and laugh today. Have a good day. It lightens everything up.
Very good. So just to wrap things up, any final words? We've got a month till the expo, so if people just can't wait and they need to get on this happiness thing right away.
This is the first thing I suggest. I do that in the morning for 5 minutes when I wake up, and that's because then I've conditioned myself in order to be have a good day, to feel good. Tony Robbins says, I don't hope I have a good day. I demand it. I put myself into that state. So if you want to get on the happiness train, I suggest that you smile. Take a moment and do that. We're like, whoa, well, something's not making me smile. But if you're waiting your whole life for something to happen outside of you so that you can react inside, you're living your life as a reactor and not a creator. You need to create experiences. And that begins by taking initiative. And so taking initiative by just reflecting on what we feel good about, or smiling, or taking initiative by talking to that man or woman that we've been admiring, that we think is so pretty or handsome, or the new job, or talking to our boss, or the new friend, calling up our mom or our dad, taking the initiative, no matter what it is, because we're either a creator or we're a reactor. And if we're reacting to all the circumstances of life, then we've lost our power and we're powerless. And so being a creator is taking initiative.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the most important thing in order to get on the happiness train.
Really good advice. Thank you for that. So, have a great month, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon.
Ethan, thank you, man.
Thank you.
Too. It was fun.
All right. We'll talk soon.
Peace, brother.
Peace.